Hi everyone, welcome to Difference Frames the World, a channel to find a real China. Here is a new program, China on the World, in which we will pass China's voice on world affairs to the non-Chinese speaking audience. The contents are based on Chinese Foreign Ministry spokespersons' remarks at regular press conferences. It is going to be 5 times a week. This program is in response to many viewers' requests, as no mainstream media in the West report China's opinions on world affairs. We will decide whether we should open a new channel specifically for this program in a month. Please give us your advice in the comments below. The new program will not affect the daily update of our normal uploads, so there will be 12 videos a week, 5 videos for China on the World, and 7 videos for Difference from the World. Today's video for China on the World is based on Zhao Jian's remarks on June 24, 2021. A reporter from Prensa Latina, the official news agency of Cuba, asked Zhao Jian a question on the U.S. embargo against Cuba. Once again, the international community said no to the U.S. blockade against Cuba. I wonder if China has any comment about this call. Zhao Jian, the Chinese spokesman, replied, "For 29 consecutive years, the UN General Assembly has adopted resolutions calling for an end to the economic, commercial and financial embargo imposed on Cuba by the US, which urged the states to abide by the UN Charter and the norms of international law and end the commercial and financial embargo imposed on Cuba. Regrettably, these resolutions have not been effectively implemented over the years. The embargo imposed by the United States against Cuba is still in place and has even been tightened in recent years. China believes that we should respect the right of each country to choose its social system and development path independently. China upholds the international order based on international law, safeguard global fairness and justice, and oppose unilateral coercive measures imposed on other countries by military, political, economic or other means. China urges the U.S. to immediately and wholly lift its economic, commercial and financial embargo against Cuba, which is the universal call of the international community. We hope that the U.S. will develop normal state-to-state relations with Cuba following the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and the basic norms governing international relations. It serves the common interests of the two peoples and contributes to peace and stability in the Americas as a whole." A reporter from CCTV, China's official news outlet, asked the spokesman. According to reports, the Asia and Pacific High-Level Conference on Belt and Road Cooperation was held in Beijing yesterday. Could you offer more details and any outcomes of the meeting? Zhao Jian answered. On June 23, the Asia and Pacific High-Level Conference on Belt and Road Cooperation was successfully held via video link. President Xi Jinping delivered a written address. State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi presided over the meeting and delivered a keynote speech. The conference was themed on promoting cooperation on combating the pandemic for sustainable recovery. It was attended by political leaders from 29 countries, such as Colombian President Ivan Duque, and representatives from 6 international organizations, including the United Nations. The meeting reached a 6-point consensus. First, all participants spoke highly of the progress made in the international cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative. They hope to build a closer partnership, form greater synergy between BRI and their development strategies and plans. Second, the pandemic is the most pressing challenge at present, and the international community must work together to overcome the difficulties. Third, all parties agreed to strengthen international cooperation on vaccines further and promote equitable distribution as a global public good among all countries. All parties oppose vaccine nationalism and support the efforts made by the UN institution in promoting global immunization and improving the accessibility and affordability of vaccines globally, especially in developing countries. Fourth, the BRI cooperation should prioritize green development, build a green Silk Road, and create more highlights of cooperation in green infrastructure, green energy, green finance, and other fields. Fifth, all parties support cross-border flows of goods and people and support countries in advancing trade and investment liberalization and facilitation. Sixth, all parties stress the importance of accelerating the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and supporting and practicing multilateralism advocated by the UN. Besides, 2 cooperation initiatives were launched during the meeting. The first is the Initiative for Belt and Road Partnership on COVID-19 Vaccines Cooperation, which calls for strengthening international cooperation in vaccine research and development, production and distribution, and improving the accessibility and affordability of vaccines globally, especially in developing countries. The second is the Initiative for Belt and Road Partnership on Green Development, which supports building a green Silk Road to step up cooperation in green infrastructure, green energy and green finance, and promote green, low-carbon and sustainable development. A Bloomberg reporter asked Zhao Jian, Australia will appeal to the World Trade Organization regarding China's anti-dumping duties in the country's wine. What's your response? The second question, the U.S. is poised to bar some solar products made in Xinjiang over allegations of human rights abuses. Does the Foreign Ministry have any comment on this? Zhao Jian answered, on your first question, China has clarified its position on relevant issues on many occasions. Please refer to competent authorities for details. I want to emphasize that China abides by the WTO rules and always acts under them. On your second question, China strongly condemns the sanctions that the U.S. imposes on Chinese companies based on lies and disinformation. The so-called forced labor and genocide in Xinjiang are the century's biggest lies. Based on lies, the U.S. abuses its entity list to suppress Xinjiang's photovoltaic industry. It violates international trade rules and the principles of the market economy and undermines the global industrial and supply chains. From cotton to PV, from agriculture to industry, the U.S. side uses human rights as a disguise to do all it could to cripple the industrial development in Xinjiang. What it does is detrimental to Xinjiang people's rights to subsistence and development. It also exposes that what they are after is not facts, truth or Xinjiang people's well-being, but to create forced unemployment and forced poverty to mess up Xinjiang and contain China's development. We want to remind the U.S. that the actual perpetrator of genocide and forced labor is no other than the U.S. itself. U.S. politicians should repent the country's history of genocide against Native Americans and African Americans in Tulsa, and focus their energy on solving human rights problems, such as racial conflicts and forced labor in the U.S. China will take all necessary measures to safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese companies resolutely. A report from NHK, Japan's news agency, asked the spokesman. At a press conference on June 24, 2021, Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Katsunobu Kato voiced his deep concern about the closure of Apple Daily and called it a huge setback for the freedoms of speech and the press in Hong Kong. What's your response? Zhao Jian answered, the Japanese politician openly interferes with Hong Kong affairs, which are China's internal affairs. It is a severe breach of international law and basic norms governing international relations. We deplore and stand firmly against it and categorically reject the absurd remarks by the Japanese side. Hong Kong upholds the rule of law. It is not a haven beyond the law. Freedom of the press does not entail impunity for crimes. Anti-China Hong Kong disruptors have no extrajudicial rights. The Hong Kong SAR government ensures that regulations are strictly enforced and complied with, and offenses are prosecuted. It has been endorsed and supported widely by the public in Hong Kong. It will help consolidate and improve the one country, two systems, and promote Hong Kong's stability and prosperity. A reporter from AFP, Agence France Presse, asked Zhao Jian a question also related to the closing of Apple Daily. The UK government said yesterday that the closure of Apple Daily was a chilling blow to freedom of expression in Hong Kong, and said that the Hong Kong national security law is being used to punish dissent rather than keep public order. Do you have any response to this particular comment? Zhao Jian answered, we deplore and reject the blatant interference in China's Hong Kong affairs time and again by some individuals in the UK. The Chinese government's administration of Hong Kong is based upon China's constitution and the Basic Law, not the Sino-British Joint Declaration. No foreign country has the right to point fingers at or make irresponsible remarks on Hong Kong affairs or China's other internal affairs. Under the disguise of upholding freedom of speech and the press, the UK undermines the rule of law in Hong Kong. A word of advice for some individuals on the British side: no matter how hard they try to whitewash their ploy of pressuring China by playing the Hong Kong card, they will only end up with failure. We urge the UK to abide by international law and the basic norms governing international relations. It should know the reality that it has been 24 years since Hong Kong returned to China, and get over its old colonial dream. It should stop double standards and interfering in China's Hong Kong affairs in any way, and do more to contribute to the prosperity and stability of Hong Kong, and the development of China and UK relations. Reuters asked Zildjian. According to a Reuters report, the Pacific island of Nauru is negotiating to construct an undersea communications cable that would connect to an Australian network after it earlier rejected the Chinese proposal due to security concerns. Do you have any comments on this report? Zildjian replied, I don't know if the situation you mentioned is true or not. Please refer to relevant authorities for that question. First, I want to stress that the Chinese government always encourages Chinese enterprises to follow market principles and international rules, and abide by local laws while doing business overseas. Second, Chinese companies have always maintained a good record in cybersecurity. The allegation of so-called China-related security concerns is groundless, and China is wrongly targeted. The world is clear-eyed about who has engaged in espionage activities, including spying and theft of secrets. Do I need to repeat what is so clear? Beijing Daily raised a question. Joschka Fischer, former foreign minister and vice-chancellor of Germany, wrote in a recent article that it is misleading to compare the relationship between the West and China to that between the US and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Given the economic interdependencies between China and the world economy, the idea that China can be isolated is absurd. Do you have a comment on this? Zildjian answered, we agree with Mr. Fischer's objective and rational assessment. It has been more than 30 years since the Cold War ended. Today, the political and economic landscape of the world is of vast difference, with countries' interests deeply intertwined. Zero-sum game and Cold War mentality are doomed to be discarded. Just as Mr. Fischer puts it, the global challenge of the 21st century will force the great powers to embrace cooperation, regardless of who is number one. Win-win cooperation is the trend of the times and people's shared aspirations. It is nothing but an illusion that any country can be contained or isolated with the Cold War modality. China is committed to the path of peaceful, open, cooperative, and joint development. We advocate peace, development, equity, justice, democracy, and freedom, which are shared values of humanity. We are committed to promoting a new type of international relations and a community with a shared future for humankind. We hope those who are still lost in the Cold War delusion can wake up as soon as possible. They should pay more attention to the insights of visionary people and do more things to boost mutual trust and cooperation between countries and advance the shared development interests of all humanity. Thank you so much for your time on this video. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and share them with people you know. We publish videos daily and post long videos on topics viewers are interested in once or twice a week. If you have anything you want to share with us, please leave your comments below.